Why it is sometimes good to judge a book by its cover. Welcome to Unpopular Wisdom, a space where we rethink the advice that every other person follows. It sounds wise, fair, and open minded, and in many situations, it is good advice, no doubt. People can surprise you, opportunities can appear in unexpected places. First impressions are not always accurate, but they matter. There is another side to this conversation that most people avoid discussing. Sometimes judging a book by its cover is not only reasonable, but it is very necessary. The reality is that covers exist for a reason. You see, when you want to buy a product, they do packaging. It's not for nothing. Appearance, behavior, and presentation all communicate information. They may not tell the whole story, but often they tell part of that story. Ignoring that information completely can lead to poor decisions, wasted time, and avoidable problems. Come to think about it, if you are looking for a restaurant and you see one that is clean, it is organized, and it is well maintained, then close by is another one with dirty tables, overflowing trash bins, and poor hygiene. It is a natural thing that you would feel more comfortable with the one that is well maintained. You will enter that one first. Are you judging based on appearance? Yes, that is judging a book by its cover. You're making a practical decision based on visible evidence. That appearance may not tell you everything about the food that they sell inside, but at least it tells you something about the standards of the business. The same principle applies to people. No, you should not assume you know someone's entire character after a brief encounter, but you should pay attention to the signals they choose to send. When most people, when they meet you for a first time, they behave in a certain way, they dress in a certain way. So how someone treats others, the way they speak, and how they manage their responsibilities, even how they present themselves, are all forms of communication. Those are the things you see from the outside. That is the cover. These things may not reveal everything, but at least they reveal something. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is confusing being open-minded with ignoring obvious warning signals. Most people tell themselves they should not judge even when all the evidence in front of them suggests caution. As a result, they walk into situations that could have been avoided. Consider another simple example. Imagine you are looking for someone to rent a room in your home. Two people show up for the interview. The first one arrives on time, speaks respectfully, and has all the necessary documents already. The second arrives late, without explanations, seems careless, and cannot even answer basic questions about their plans. You do not know either persons deeply. In fact, you are making a judgment based largely on first impressions. Now, let's imagine that someone tells you not to judge a book by its cover and encourages you to ignore everything you observed. Would that be wise? Probably not. The first impression may not tell you everything about either persons, but it provides useful information. It helps you to make a decision with the limited information you have available at your disposal. That is how life works. We rarely have complete information, so we use the clues we can see. The truth is that every decision involves some level of judgment. Employers judge job applicants. Customers judge businesses. Students judge their teachers. Even investors judge companies. Even in your friendship, most friendships begin with first impressions. The question is not whether judgment happens. The real question is whether it is done thoughtfully. Good judgment does not mean making permanent conclusions. It means making temporary assessments based on available evidence while remaining willing to adjust. To do what? To adjust your opinion when new information appears. That is very different from prejudice. Prejudice simply closes the door before learning anything. Good judgment helps you to decide where to start. People who refuse to judge anything often end up trusting everyone equally, and that can be very dangerous. Trust should be earned. Respect can be given freely, but you see, trust, it requires evidence. If someone consistently displays irresponsible behavior, it is not unfair to take that into account. It is common sense. Another reason appearances matter is because people intentionally create them. Businesses spend money on branding. Professionals, on the other hand, invest time in their resumes and communication skills. Individuals choose how they dress and behave in public. These choices are not meaningless. They are signals. While signals can sometimes be misleading, they still provide information worth considering. Of course, there are exceptions to every rule, and sometimes the quiet person ends up becoming the best friend. Sometimes the small business provides better services than the famous brand. At other times, the person who made a poor first impression turns out to be the exceptional one. And that is why first impressions should not become final verdicts. They should simply become starting points. However, it's always good to balance the approach. And you can do that by judging carefully and not harshly. Pay attention to what you see, but remain open to learning more. Always use first impressions as clue, not as conclusive evidence. Let the appearances inform your decisions without completely controlling them. So the next time someone says, never judge a book by its cover, remember that life is more complicated than that. A cover may not tell the whole story, but it often tells part of the story. And sometimes paying attention to that part can save you time, energy, money, and disappointment. The smartest people are not those who ignore first impressions. They are the ones who use them wisely while remaining willing to change their minds when new evidence show up.